Problem with doing one of these recordings, it reminds me of my hair that needs sorting out, and nowhere's open. Everyone's shutting down for more virus stuff. I need to sort that out. Hello guys, and welcome back to another one of these fantastic tier list videos that I know you all love and enjoy more than life itself. My name is RabbidLuigi. Last time I talked about Grand Theft Auto games because I thought it'd be easy, and it kind of wasn't, because actually a lot of that franchise is kind of mixed up, and you got Vice City and Vice City Stories, and it's hard to tell one game out from the next. Hopefully today will be an easier time, although frankly it's Fire Emblem, so anything goes, because if you know anything about this franchise, fanbase is fun. Fanbase is very passionate. They like their stuff. They don't like other stuff. I'm hoping that I don't make them too mad, but frankly, it's a possibility. I mean, I have my opinions. I reckon I'll be okay because I don't think I have too crazy an opinion of Fire Emblem games. I enjoy them. That's nothing too bad. I'm just checking that every Fire Emblem game is here. I think it is. Problem is, I don't actually remember what a lot of the Fire Emblem box arts look like. There's the newer ones that I can understand. The fact that Three Houses is here, which is the latest release in the franchise. Fire Emblem Heroes? Yeah, Heroes isn't here, the mobile game isn't here, but I think everything else is, unless Heroes has some official art that's here that I'm not really picking up on, but we've got most of it. I want to say all of it. And we got the remake, which is good. I was wondering if they'd have that, but we do, and that's fine. So we're just gonna go and rank some Fire Emblem games. And if you know how this stuff works by now, you should know that I begin every tier list by choosing my favorite game, or the game I think is the best in the franchise, and finding a place to put it on the tier list. And the fun thing is, it's been a while. I don't really remember. Not that I remember, but I can't say with confidence what my favorite Fire Emblem game is, because I played Three Houses. That was really fun. I think what I'll come back to, and it may anger people straight out of the gate, we're like, not even 5 minutes in, like 2 minutes in, is going to be angry at the fact that I'm going to put Fire Emblem Awakening in S rank. That's a fun thing. So the reason why I've done that, before anybody gets too upset, what I like about Fire Emblem Awakening is that it took an idea that was struggling a little bit with older Fire Emblem games. I think I want to say that Shadow Dragon, which is down here it is, that was like the last Fire Emblem game before Awakening, and it took this idea that was struggling. The franchise was definitely floundering, and there weren't too many games in the franchise, and it just took it and made it more accessible, I suppose is the best way of describing it. You can say more casual, and it definitely is more casual than older Fire Emblem games. They weren't easy, and neither is Awakening, but it's made easier by certain design decisions and settings and more casual modes. Suddenly you don't have to have people dying at the end of every chapter, so it makes it more enjoyable to pick up and become a fan of from the beginning. This wasn't my first game, it was like my third Fire Emblem game, I think. I actually played Sacred Stones as my first one, which is a decent place to start, and what it did is completely revive this franchise, completely revive the public's interest in this franchise. And even though you can argue that it's not the best franchise, not the best game in the franchise out there, and that there's other games that do a lot of things a lot better, I would say that above all else, it's the most important game in this entire tier list, and I am willing to fight that to the death. Which leads us on very nicely to the home console Fire Emblem games. You need to remember that for a very large period of time, I want to say at least a good half of its lifetime, this franchise existed almost solely on handhelds, and they worked really well. It's got like that Advanced Wars style that if you condense things down to a more retro style, you can have more fun, you can refine the gameplay more and make it more enjoyable. Putting Fire Emblem on a home console, I might just package them together because they're very similar. Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn. I want to say Path of Radiance was on the GameCube, Radiant Dawn was on the Wii, released fairly close to each other. What they do is they manage to retain a sense of retro styling. They don't suddenly throw everything out the window just because we're on a home console, hey, we can do whatever we want now. They actually keep things fairly similar, familiar. They actually do like the grid style of moving around arenas, and that's fine. I like that. What I didn't like as much is how hard Radiant Dawn was. It's not difficult, it's not crazy hard, it's not the hardest game in the world, but it does rely on the fact that you played what is effectively the previous game in the little duology they have here. Is it duology? Is that 2 games? I know Trilogy. Yeah, that sounds right. But effectively, you've got Path of Radiance, which was treading some new ground, effectively, with bringing Fire Emblem back to home consoles, which is a really solid attempt at doing so. And then Radiant Dawn, which should know better. The pathway's already there, groundwork has already been laid out, and it chooses to do this groundwork by making it a harder video game. And I didn't really have as much fun as with Path of Radiance. Now, these games have their fans, they've got some really good stories in them, and it makes it difficult for me to do this, but I'm going to do that. I might move Path of Radiance. I get them mixed up. That's the first thing first thing I should say, is that I get Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn a bit confused, because they have the same kind of naming convention and very similar characters. So, all I'm going to say is that Path of Radiance, the GameCube game, I might bump it up to S later. Radiant Dawn can stay there for now, because frankly it's a good game, but I think a lot of other Fire Emblem games have a better balance of difficulty and just better refined features, which it should have, being the second game in this little home console stint. So I'm okay with that for now. Is everyone else okay? Should I keep going? I'm going to keep going. Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, a game I always forget exists because frankly it came after the home console games we've just talked about, but before Awakening. It's in this weird middle period where, you know, Fire Emblem wasn't that popular. It was in Smash Bros, but other than that, it wasn't that popular in the West, and I can't even remember if it made it out of Japan at that point. But Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon is a remake of I forget exactly what it's called, but it's Fire Emblem is it Shadow Dragon and Blinding Light? It's here. It's this one. It's in Japanese. I can't do it, but it's a DS remake, an attempt to capture a game that not many people played or even got out of Japan. Can't exactly remember that, but it's an interesting game. It is an interesting game because it's actually an early remake of... Yeah, there's a few of those in this franchise where you think that Fire Emblem Echoes a big standout for being a remake of an older game, but they've done it before, and they haven't always been brilliant. I would say Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon is a very good remake of a okay game. I have difficulties with what it's remaking more than anything else, and that makes it hard to judge because we're going to get to the original at some point. But as a remake, I do have to be critical of the game that's in front of me when I play it. So what it does very well is it is a very good remake, but the problem is the original game, quite difficult, quite hard to understand, got some crap game design in there as well. The story's quite good from what I remember, there's a lot going on, but that's the problem with every remake that tries to fix problems with older games. If you do fix the problems, it becomes a bit of a disingenuous remake and a hard remake to sell as being a remade of an older game. But this is along the lines of let's just remake it one-to-one, and that makes it a little bit hard to recommend. As it's definitely something I'd recommend as a way of experiencing that older game, but compared to other games, and especially where it falls in the Fire Emblem timeline, not in-game, but as in our universe, it's kind of in limbo. You can tell it's in limbo. The developers didn't really know what they wanted to do, but they remade this game anyway, and it's okay. And I wouldn't recommend it as your first Fire Emblem experience. There's other games out there that will give you that, and are just more fun to play, really. You're going to find a problem with the remakes that they're just a little bit clunky, is maybe the nicest way of putting it. Hold on a minute, this is the other Fire Emblem game I forget about because it came after Shadow Dragon. This is New Mystery of the Emblem. Strange game, because it's a remake of Mystery of the Emblem, which is half decent. It kind of falls into the same category, albeit with a bit more higher quality as Shadow Dragon, where you're remaking an older game. The older games have not aged well, and it's a little tricky to remake them without just showing the world how badly they've aged. My issue is that the gameplay is slow and a little bit clunky. Like, the actual presentation, comparatively, is really good, but you can tell that what they were remaking wasn't all that great, and I don't know, it's hard to really describe. What I do remember though is that they had casual mode in this, so a kind of an easier way of experiencing an older game that is a bit more unforgiving. So for that, I kind of want to stick it a little higher immediately, just because it's like a lot kinder to newcomers. I wouldn't recommend it as your first Fire Emblem game, but if you're open and out there to decide that you want to start with this, sure. Who hasn't played Fire Emblem yet? It's really good in places, you know. No games in D yet. That's a good thing. But here we are, breaking new ground, finding things to put in D. The Fire Emblem Fates Trilogy, we're going to talk about all of them at the same time, because, frankly, why the fuck wouldn't you? I remember the marketing for this game. It's recent, I want to say 2014 or 2015, maybe 2016, I don't know, but the marketing promoted this idea that you could make your choice which side of the conflict you want to be on in this game, but really the only choice here was which colour of box did you want. Although, frankly, what I like about them is that each game, we're going to get to Revelation, but each of Birthright and Conquest, they have a different focus. Birthright is a more casual and easier game. You can grind in it. You can do so many things that you can't do in Conquest. Conquest is... I didn't like Conquest when I first played it. I got Conquest, my sister got Birthright, we discussed notes, we both got Revelations, because we were kind of hooked. But Conquest is actually quite good, albeit under a backdrop, and this applies to the whole trilogy, of a not very good story. I didn't like the story. It's a bit backwards for Fire Emblem, because usually the story is good and the gameplay kind of trips up occasionally, but the story is dumb. I don't like it. I didn't like it. Characters make just the worst decisions for no apparent reason, and Revelations is where it just becomes a bit annoying, because the story in Conquest and Birthright is of characters making dumb decisions. In Revelations it's like, oh no, actually don't worry about it, there's a third option, which is some unforeseen evil is controlling everybody, and we got to defeat that, and we can all be friends. And I didn't like it for just being the worst idea in the world. So it's a hard thing to judge. Like, the gameplay is good in these, so I can't be too harsh. I might move Revelations down later, but I want to put it here. Conquest can go here, and Birthright can go here. I don't hate any of those games. They're still a good time. I had fun playing them. I played them for a long time. I got my money's worth. Conquest is more fun, because it's more challenging. It's got some components to it that I really wish the other games had. It's just that the games annoy me. They really do. I wish they were better. I wish everything was like Conquest, because once I replayed it, I realised that it was challenging in a way that the other games just weren't, and that disappointed me more than anything. So, you know, I've spread Fates around on this video. It's kind of been christened now. We've already found our third remake, and frankly, this is a remake I can get alongside, because Fire Emblem Echoes, didn't play it when it came out, but frankly didn't need to, because I played Gaiden. Gaiden, when we get to it, oh man, not good game. Fire Emblem Echoes, rather, is actually quite an impressive remake. I would say, again, like the previous remakes we've talked about, it suffers from having to remake an older, more archaic version of Fire Emblem, but what I like about Echoes is it does actually make the changes. It makes the updates to try and bring it into the modern day, tweaking some mechanics so that it's not so dumb, they're not so aggravating to play with. The only issue, really, from what I remember playing it, is that it retains the same difficulty progression as Gaiden, and that means that it kind of fluctuates in difficulty kind of wildly. There's some big spikes and some levels that do require some, I wouldn't say hefty grinding, but some significant grinding that, you know, you sort of sit down and realize you're doing it, levels of grinding. And again, I can't recommend it as someone's first Fire Emblem game. There's not many I'd recommend, but once you get in, you can have some fun. But as it is, it's just quite a nice retelling of a decent story, I've got to say. That's another thing, because the difference from Gaiden on, I want to say the NES, maybe the SNES, maybe, I can't really remember, but difference of that to the 3DS is you can have much better presentation, graphics and voice acting, and suddenly the story is fleshed out massively. So it's not an S tier. I think that's a bit too ambitious, but it is a really impressive attempt at remaking a game that is not great. It's not all that great at all. So it's happy there. I'm happy with it being there, and, you know, we'll move on. So really at this point it's just a question of which game would I have over one another as my favourite Fire Emblem game. Would it be Awakening or Three Houses? That probably tells you where that game goes in the tier list, but maybe have a bit of an explanation as to why, because Fire Emblem Three Houses had the difficult decision, or difficult role, really, of being a home console game for the first time in about, I don't know, 13, 12 years. And that's difficult, because the Switch is this wonderful hybrid console between handheld and console, and maybe that made Intelligent Systems mind up about how they were going to approach it, because it's got the same approach, I suppose, as Fates did, in the idea that you can choose your faction, choose how you're going to play through the story. Great for replay value, and at least in this case, it's all in one game, so you haven't got to buy different games to enjoy the replay value. What Three Houses is a really impressive collection of ideas of Fire Emblem, and while I wouldn't say, I don't know, I can't really say if it's my favourite above Awakening, but I did enjoy it quite a lot, and I played it for a pretty freaking long time. So the only thing I would complain, and I have to mention it because I've mentioned it for other games where the inverse, it's quite easy. It's significantly easier than, I don't want to say any other Fire Emblem game, but at least, you know, Sacred Stones is pretty easy, but Three Houses is maybe the easiest Fire Emblem game. Again, it's trying to appeal to the masses, become more casual. It does retain some of the hardcore elements of previous games, but it's also trying to please a lot of people, and for that, I'm not going to not put it in S. It has to go in S, but it's very easy. It's very replayable, and it makes it less frustrating, the fact that you would want to replay it, and it's not going to trip you up all the time, but I didn't find myself challenged too much by it. But frankly, everything else, pretty friggin' solid, so I have no real qualms. Hey, I've just remembered that this video is sponsored, and I'm going to have to talk about the Ridge wallet, and you're going to have to listen. Yeah! Given how advanced we're making all of our things these days, it's a bit strange how little wallet-making technology has progressed over the years. We've got phones that can do crazy things, but wallets are still leather and heavy and too big for our pockets. Luckily, Ridge is here to help out with their sturdy wallets that can hold up to 12 cards with extra room for cash, and with more than 30 colours and styles to choose from, you're very likely to find something that suits your tastes. Plus, Ridge were kind enough to send me one of their waterproof commuter backpacks with a shock-resistant laptop holder and an external USB port for on-the-go charging. Honestly, once I start going on public transport again, I'm definitely using this as much as possible. Ridge comes with a lifetime warranty, so you can buy one wallet for the rest of your life if you like, with a 45-day return window for a free refund if you're not such a fan. Get 10% off today with free worldwide shipping and returns by going to ridge.com/RabbidLuigi and using the code RabbidLuigi. It's time to move your wallet into the future. Back to the video. Oh hey, here is Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and Binding Light, which I have just remembered, or definitely not looked up, is actually the first Fire Emblem game. I do forget that. That does slip my mind most of the time, because you'd think it's just called Fire Emblem, but that is not the case. So, interesting game, very interesting game to talk about, because being the first Fire Emblem game, it has a role to fill. It's effectively a brand new RPG. That's what you'd think when you first saw it being advertised and saw people playing it and commercials for it. So it's attempting to be a new RPG with more of a, I don't even think it had like an action stance to it, but it had a different approach to other RPGs, because it's got more strategic elements from like Famicom Wars and that sort of thing. But my issue comes from the fact that it's aged badly. It's aged really badly. The graphics are their own challenge, because that's just kind of what you get with other older RPGs, really. But the problem is how it feeds back into difficulty, because you get less feedback anyway from these graphics, and having it applied to a game that is fairly tricky just makes it a bit more frustrating to play. So, you know, I can appreciate it what it is. It launched this franchise slowly. It didn't do brilliantly out of the gate, but people slowly went in dribs and drabs and decided that this was a fun franchise that they wanted to pay attention to. But I can't be too praiseworthy for it, because, you know, it's just a bit old at this point, and many other games have done things better, except for start the franchise off, because only one game can do that. Oh god, it's Gaiden! Kill it! Send it away! Send it away! I do not like Gaiden. Can I tell you how much I don't like Gaiden? The fact that it's called Gaiden, which, if you don't know, means side story. So, not only is this an attempt to be a literal side story from Fire Emblem canon, but it is actually a different type of Fire Emblem game, and that did not go well. From what I remember, I think it actually sold quite well in comparison to the first game, and it's effectively the Zelda 2 of Fire Emblem, where, not as drastically, but they tried to change up some of the ideas in this franchise and decided to do away with a lot of the strategic elements and just kind of had large maps that you could, you know, roam around and attack people in, and it's a really weird game to play, because it becomes quite monotonous early on, because you realise that you're just doing the same thing. There's not a lot of originality from one level to the next, and because there's less, the strategic elements are downplayed, you don't feel you have as much control over what you can do. And then suddenly, the difficulty in like the latter half to a third of the game becomes really difficult out of nowhere, and because you haven't really had chance to express your strategic elements really, you can't really prepare for it. You can't really decide how you want to approach it. So it's not really anybody's Fire Emblem game, and it did well, it did okay, but the fact that a lot of the ideas in this game were dropped after it kind of shows that, you know, they didn't really like what they'd done here, and I don't either. So it's gonna have to go in D, because frankly I can't think of a lower point in the franchise. I mean, maybe when they started selling badly at the turn of the century, but this is just a little bit odd. And, you know, you look at it now, and it just shows how decent of a job Echoes did, because this is what it was remaking, and frankly, what's it got going for it? It's got some nice characters and some nice music, I suppose, but, you know, didn't enjoy it. And hey, we found Mystery of the Emblem, not Mystery of the New Emblem. It's very hard to tell those games apart sometimes, because there's only one word in it, and, you know, as a remake name goes, just putting new in it kind of just makes it sound bad. Hey Mario. But, so, what I remember this game being is not amazing, but decent and pretty good compared to Gaiden. I think it was the third game. It also tried to remake the first game somewhat, at least it would like a soft reboot of the first game at some point, but it does suffer from the same rough issues as the older games, because at this point they were still heavily rooted as being a Japanese-only franchise. We're going to enjoy our little bubble of tactical RPGs, some more tactical than others, and we aren't really going to try and flesh it out too much. The stories in these early games, basic. You don't need much. Frankly, you weren't able to develop much for early games, but it means that the gameplay is under heavier scrutiny, because that's what you're there to do. And, you know, it's decent, it's fairly fleshed out, it's got a few more features to play around with than Gaiden and, you know, the first game did, but it's still trying to find its feet at this point, and you can tell that a lot of the interesting older games, they did things that, you know, you can tell are lacking in this quality of game. So, you know, we're coming to them soon. I just want to talk about them. We haven't got many left. We've just got some GBA games, and, you know, there's Thrakia in there. Thrakia is kind of interesting, but, you know, this is okay. It's okay. B is fine. I'm not upset with it, but other games have done things better, and other games we're coming up to right now, so why not just get to it? Because, motherfucker, this is Genealogy of the Holy War, which is some damn good shit. This is where... Am I really wonky? I look really wonky on my camera. I don't know. I'm maybe wonky. Maybe I'll fix it in post. But Genealogy of the Holy War, comparatively to previous games, is like a whole different beast. I wouldn't say it's an S rank, but goddamn, it's a bit of a leap forward, because this is where the story came in. This is where the emotional beats came in. Because if you're dealing with the idea of permadeath and the concept of characters being, you know, moved around a battlefield and potentially being killed off, you've got to have some kind of emotion to it. You've got to have an investment to it. And previous games didn't really have that. So, Genealogy of the Holy War, it's kind of what brought Fire Emblem into the pattern and the ideas that still hold true nowadays. The thing that surprises me is that Genealogy of the Holy War is one of the only, I mean there's a few, but one of the only games that A, didn't make it out of the West, or didn't make it out of Japan, because I don't really know, apparently, you know, didn't make it out of Japan, because, you know, Japan, Nintendo, was still keen on keeping Fire Emblem for just themselves, apparently, and B, it didn't even get a remake. That's the surprising thing. The fact that all these older games, which have issues with them, got a remake makes sense for making sure you get to fix them, but it didn't even get that. It doesn't need a lot of fixing, it just needs... We need to play it again, because you can't play it officially in English, and, you know, as fan translations, but it's still a Japanese-only release. I want it. I feel like we should try and get it remade. And frankly, when you're talking about remakes that need to happen, Thrakia 776, which has always been one of my favourite, more confusing titles in the franchise, is a must, because this game was done dirty by everybody at Nintendo who decided to release it on a... I forget exactly what it was called, but it's a certain type of SNES disc that, or even like a cartridge, that just wasn't readily available. They didn't make a lot of copies, they didn't sell a lot of copies. It's one of those games that is really, really good, but just didn't get the love that it deserved, because it got love, but it didn't get sales that it deserved. And again, the fact that it didn't come out still hasn't come out in the West, you still can't officially play it in English, is just insane to me, because this takes ideas of Genealogy of the Holy War and makes them very dramatic. It's got some incredibly dramatic story beats, it's got more of the same really impressive gameplay, it's where Fire Emblem's starting to get into its stride, it's on a home console, and then they just kind of took a step back and decided to start doing some handhelds. They're building up to something, and they just kind of let it slide. I think, from what I remember, the main issue is that it came out on the SNES just around the time of the N64 coming out, so it had no business coming out on the console it did at the time it did, and then for Nintendo and Intelligent Systems to just say, you know what, we're going to do our own thing and just make handheld games. And there's nothing wrong with that, but damn, you need to come back to Thrakia 776 or Thracia. I don't care how you name it, just that you play it and that you enjoy it, because damn it, it fucking deserves it. I don't know about S. I think that's a bit keen, bit too emotionally driven for me to say, fuck it, let's put it in S, but it's definitely like a good A tier. It's where, like, older games are struggling, and then Genealogy of the Holy War and Thrakia came in and said, you know, this is what Fire Emblem can be and should be, and we need them again, or I'm gonna get very violent. And to finish off with, I need to sit up because I'm lying down too much. To finish off with, we have 3 GBA Fire Emblem games of, I wouldn't say massively fluctuating quality, but definitely different associations within the Fire Emblem franchise, because we have the Binding Blade here with Roy, because he's our boy. We have, I think it's just called Fire Emblem. I want to look that one up. Oh yeah, I remember now. So it's Fire Emblem, or, because this is where they came to the West, because of, you know, Melee being its own popularity, but it's either Fire Emblem or Fire Emblem the Blazing Blade, because it's got, I think, is this with Eliwood and Lyn? I can't remember, but, and then you have Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, which is its own kettle of fish and a really impressive game in its own right. I don't quite know how to rank these 3 in comparison, but what they are, roughly very similar ideas, because this is where they stumbled upon this GBA formula of Fire Emblem that was really successful for a not insignificant amount of time. The story goes that the Binding Blade was one video game that Intelligent Systems decided to make as a, you know, trying to get some cash out of the GBA, trying to see what they can do with this new little bit of handheld. But also because Advanced Wars was doing really well in the West, they decided that Fire Emblem the Blazing Blade shouldn't be a companion title, because it's kind of, you know, makes sense. It's similar characters, or not similar characters, but they're like different, the same family of characters, if you haven't played it. That makes sense to me, but it might not make sense to you. And then they decided that actually, with Fire Emblem the Blazing Blade, we'll put some more effort into it, we'll delay development, we'll refine it, we'll get an English translation in there as well, and we will release it as the first official Western Fire Emblem game, which is very interesting considering it features neither Marth nor Roy, who were the famous Melee characters. So it is very interesting. Sacred Stones came some time afterwards. They knew what they were doing in the West at that point, and it's a bit more of a not quite a casual game, but I remember you could grind, and it was a lot slower in a lot of places, but a lot more of an overall experience that you can, if you're not going to fly through it, there's no massive difficulty curves, a more palatable Fire Emblem experience. Now, how the hell do I pick all that down, pick all through that, and decide where I'm going to put these 3 games? Kind of hard to do. They're all pretty impressive. I can't really, I want to put one of these in S, because I feel like one of them at least deserves it, and it's a bit tricky to decide. I want to do, yeah, I do want to do, okay, we're doing it. Fine. So Sacred Stones it was the first Fire Emblem game I played, and I really enjoyed it. And then I went to Awakening. Then I did the rest of the GBAs. Then I did, I can't remember. I think I did the home console duo here, and then I basically did everything else in a roundabout order. And this is what made me love Fire Emblem. It really did. I got it as part of the 3DS Ambassador program when they did that as a free download. I really enjoyed it, I really loved it, and if I didn't play that, I probably wouldn't even be making this video, so have to appreciate it for that. Fire Emblem just Fire Emblem, it's hard to judge. Should I put any others in S? I'm gonna do it. Yeah, we'll do that. I'm gonna put that in A, because by the time I got to it, I actually didn't finish it because I was so burnt out on GBA Fire Emblems, and that's the best judgment I can give. But I'm gonna give the Fire Emblem, technically the Blazing Blade, S because of what it meant to the Western audience. The fact that it came to the West in such a refined quality of Fire Emblem that we all started to love this franchise slowly over a period of decades, and, you know, where it is now is the strongest it's ever been, and, you know, if it didn't even come to the West, we wouldn't even know about it, so got to give it praise for something. But anyway, that is my tier list about Fire Emblem games. Did you enjoy it? Do you agree or disagree? I feel like looking over it, I'm pleased. I don't want to move anything around. Path of Radiance can stay in A. I feel like that's a good quality A tier. There's nothing in there that I would say I would want to move anywhere else. I'm okay with the lower ranks. Gaiden makes me sad. Does it make you happy? Let me know. Do you disagree? Do you love Gaiden? Tell me how much you love Gaiden. And, you know, send me messages. Write to me in real life. Tell me how much you love Gaiden, sure. But anyway, what would you like me to cover next? I've had a few ideas, a few like brainstorming sessions. The likes of Kirby came up, and Castlevania, Resident Evil. It's coming to Halloween next month. This is like the day before October starts, so I've got a few ideas for Halloween style tier list videos, so I'm gonna see what I can do with that, if I can think of any more horror franchises. Maybe Silent Hill. Silent Hill could be hilarious, because damn, some of the older games are a bit crap. But anyway, I'm gonna let you get on with your day. I'm gonna get on with my day. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.